everyone, I'm Haley Foster, and on Executive Interviews, I'm uncovering the hidden strategies for real business success. Come with me as I dive into candid conversations with business experts that might just change how you define success. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Executive Interviews. Today, I am joined by Mark Terry. He is the founder and chief vision officer of London-based creative B2B agency, NEO, and a fractional creative director. He is also an associate partner for Marketing Alpha Partners, a sustainability-focused creative communications partner to the financial services industry. Additionally, he sits on the Public Relations and Communications Association B2B committee and is an advisor to Better Images of AI. He has 20 plus years of experience in creative direction, strategic, creative, and project management. He has launched over 30 new brands and run 50 plus creative workshops. His work has been viewed on 6 continents. He was a former head of creative at global research agency Mintel, collaborated with high-profile food and drink retail, financial and educational clients, industry bodies, and corporate partners to produce and run creative, insight-based campaigns. Mintel became a business super brand during his time there. He believes that creativity is undervalued as a commercial differentiator and that diversity of thought is the key. Mark, thank you so much for joining me today. Did I leave anything out?
No, pleasure. I apologize for all the long words you had to say.
No worries. You have such an amazing career that you've had. Tell me a little bit about it. Where did you get your start as your career, and how did you go all the way to Mintel becoming a super brand?
I guess, like I'm probably about to say about all things creative, it was not a linear thing. I started off in music, learned creativity. I went to art school, took a break, did some music, came back, did philosophy. So it was an unusual path. So I always see unusual things and how you put them together in the first place. So I ended up in market research, or creativity in market research, as a kind of, I found myself there rather than gunning for it. And as a result, it was great learning path in that as a market research company, you have to take on board all kinds of sectors, all kinds of verticals, all kinds of experiences, try new things, put things together. So therefore, I stayed quite a long time there. It became a super brand purely because it grew exponentially and tried new things and worked on trends. I mean, when I started there, it was 70 people in a London office. When I left, it was 500 all over, globally plus. And now it's,
Wow,
1,500 people globally. One thing I say about that company is it's definitely a meritocracy. So it encouraged ideas. So you never stood still. So if as a creative person, you're often buzzing with the next thing. I'm a bad finisher, but a good starter. So to keep putting me on new things is the way to go. That's why I need to have finishers around me. I do like detail, but have you ever seen Up, the film Up? The dogs just chase squirrels all the time. So squirrel, that's me with a new idea. I think, so I've got to discipline myself. That takes discipline.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's a great example. I think a lot of the best and most creative people I've worked with are like that, where they dream up these big ideas and then people are able to execute them. And so tell me a little about like your creative process. What do you mean by like having a value of creativity in your work?
I think creativity's undervalued, certainly in business. It should be treated in the same way that, accountancy, financial acumen, business acumen is amorphous. So therefore it's harder, or perceptibly harder to quantify. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, there are methods to do that, but it's a long policy. There's many kind of industry bodies, communication industry bodies that try, and their aim is to get creative people or marketing people in the boardroom at the C-suite to say they should have a voice. So I buy into that totally. You've got to know that certain creative ideas, certain soft ideas aren't going to be appreciated by people who are just talking about budgets. So that's a constant battle. But in terms of the process, I'd say diversity. People call it out of the box thinking. you can learn in the same way an accountant learns techniques. Communications people, creative people learn techniques, they learn history, they learn semiotics, they learn how to read things, how to nuance things. So there's those kind of tactics and disciplines in the process, but it is a diversity, I think, is the key thing. You need to be lateral. So that would be one way of putting it. Stick someone in a boardroom and say they're a lateral expert. So you think in different ways. The most successful brands think laterally. They put things together you wouldn't have put together. Great inventions. Isaac Newton and Apple fell down, and you invent gravity. Other things are just starting. Darwin's evolution based on birds. Finches, and they, different coloured finches. Why are these different? And they grew on different islands. So the most extraordinary things and the most unlikely things can be put together. Great cuisine is often, where Michelin stars get awarded to New York restaurants is often because they've tried, Moroccan meets Swedish or something. So suddenly it's innovative, it's interesting, and that's value. A Michelin star is value for a restaurant because of innovation. But in terms of a process, you need to learn the differences, the time when to reach for all kinds of, put different people together, put different ideas together, try the, ideation process where you reverse something or you modify it or you adapt it, all those principles that you put into place and let people run wild. And then the incubation period where you need to just let it sit. Let things move around. My best ideas are always cleaning my teeth or in the shower because I've switched off. I've stopped thinking. I've trained myself to do that. It's definitely dangerous to do it at night. I know people, and there's been stories of people that have set themselves tasks at night, their brains work them out, and they've been, long term, that's not healthy for you. Your body needs to rest. But if you can harness that day to day within working practices, there's lots of cliches about advertising agencies having table tennis tables, ping pong tables.
Yes.
And it's kind of scorned by the outside world. But you have a meeting where you talk rationally about something. This is the brief. What do you want to do about it? Throw a few ideas around. Go and play something. Go to a gallery. Go for a walk. The brain starts to fill in the gaps, and you can harness that. So the ping pong thing is particularly two people talking while they're going back and forth. So it is part of the process, and it is a tactic. It's not just playing. It is part of, and certainly whichever way around you work it, there's a very rational thing and there's a very playful thing. And I would actually argue that point. Play is quite important.
Yeah.
In the same way, the mix of, say, a musician needs a manager because the musician is a child and someone manages them. But as a designer, you've got to be both of those things. But you do need to play. You do need the lateral connections, the associative barriers. You need to switch them off. Children don't make those kind of, children don't know about race. They don't know about color. They don't know about all these things that we impinge on, we put on society. So they make these amazing, they're playful, they imagine. So there's definitely an imagination gap in the boardroom.
Definitely. I love that. I think that's so true. We need to have more brainstorms. We need to have more of that creativity and imagination because that's what's ultimately going to connect with our audience. I think from a marketing perspective, we see that a lot of these boardroom activities and they're involving budget, they're involving numbers, which is so vital and important to a business. But just like you said, just that little bit of ping pong time, it's activating different parts of our brain to really enhance that creativity. And so I love that you shared that. Tell me a little bit about like diverse thinking. We've talked about, I've heard you say that word a couple of times. Can you explain to me what diverse thinking is?
Well, I think diverse thinking, diverse experience. We've talked about where you put unusual things together. So that also applies to people. You mentioned audiences, reaching audiences. Yeah. Every audience is different and every person is different, even if people are putting demographic groups. So everyone's comes with a different perception. Everyone, even if people have interest groups and they're the same age or they're the same ethnic background, their lives are all very, very different. They'll approach something entirely differently. So, I mean, for marketers, it's a conundrum because you're trying to reach people and find commonality. I actually love the way that the Meta Pixel works on this in terms of an algorithm. You can pick all these weird and wonderful connections. Does someone like board games and listen to hip hop and actually respond really well to new recipes or something really, and you get these kind of connections. And back to market research, that's often the thing. Between the cracks is the interesting stuff. You see all these patterns and these diverse things coming together, and there's little trends that you think, these people will do this, and these people will do this, and this is actually interesting. So sometimes that's intangible, so you need to understand it or analyze it. But analytics can be creative at the same time. So, I mean, you need to, back to Henry Ford, and, if they did the research, people would want faster horses. It's a cliche. No one had heard of a car. But it's about what you do with that and how you play with it. We do a lot of qualitative stuff, research-wise, and you can interview 10 people, 10 clients of a business, and they may all say different things, but there's all certain patterns. And after, you get to about 10 and you think, I know what they're going to say now. If you ask them that same question, they're going to say the same kind of thing because this is what they're interested in. So the diversity of thought is just that, but it's also healthy to put different people together. I love running workshops when you bring people in from different departments that aren't in the marketing department, rather than, what do you think? And that's what NASA does. So NASA has this program, I think they're called lateral experts. So they put out a problem and asked all these kind of people across all kinds of verticals, all kinds of industries, how would you do this? Could even be to do with, someone who's food academic or something, or someone who's into biological stuff. What do you think? How would you resolve this? And of course, they can't resolve the technicality, but they might have a way of approaching it. They might have a different methodology. So in looking into other industries is one way of being diverse. I mean, those things I mentioned, it's the scamper idea with ideation. Flip it, turn it upside down, try something else. How do they do it in another industry? It's all diversity of thought. And I mean, McKinsey actually did some, was it McKinsey or Greenwich University did some research on, actually McKinsey have done a lot on this. McKinsey have got a design index, which kind of monitors the value of design and creativity in business and how you outperform the benchmark by whatever their creative model. I think there's 4 elements of their creative model. But there was also a lot of research on diverse C-suite, diverse boards in companies. And I think they worked out, I think it was about 300 companies, top quartile companies, and they were outperforming the market by about 35%. And because it was a mix, what they defined as a diverse boardroom. So all people from different backgrounds rather than white middle-aged men. So that shows you that they were more innovative, more open to risk, more open to ideas, just because of the mix of influences. So, that's serious research. So in terms of value, in terms of measurement, that's pretty clear. If you're outperforming the rest of the market by some distance.
Absolutely. I love that you talked about having like a good mix in your boardroom. I think it's important to have that balance, but I still feel like creatives aren't always fully valued. Can you maybe give me your opinion on why creative peoples aren't valued in the way their real contribution deserves?
I think probably, there's certainly protectionism, traditional protectionism. Yes. This is, to any kind of difference, any kind of new element, but people don't understand creativity to some extent and then think they can all do it in another. So I don't understand complex tax laws, but I can count. I could understand, if I had the time and application, I could probably understand some of those elements. But most people say, well, I can read, I can write, I can draw. I can have ideas. they haven't been trained in, as I say, nuance and reading audiences and learning to troubleshoot ideas. But there are amazingly creative people in uncreative jobs. So it's like telling people, yes, of course you can sing. People can sing, they can learn to sing, and they probably would love to. No, not everyone. But, there is training involved in creativity. So you are an expert in that field. In terms of why it's not valued, I think it's because it's like a lot of soft skills. It's seen as this kind of amorphous thing that doesn't make a difference, and you can't necessarily measure it instantly. Fiscal results, financial results, you can measure day by day. Imagination is difficult to quantify. Innovation, yes, further down the line. But then the track record of innovation, innovation has made millions for companies. Nike is innovative, Apple is innovative. It shouldn't be that's how you make a difference. If innovation is a differentiator, it changes marketplaces. But I think that's from my point of view, still that it's an imagination gap, but it's a value gap. And I think it's often the problem of the marketing department, the creative department, to be able to find a way to measure it, to convince people of value. That may not be their skill set, although convincing consumers is, but there's a gap in terms of, I think, it's using imagination, using the skill set you have. You need to show the difference, show what you would be missing without the creativity. So if you can, there's a really interesting book by a guy called Crispin Manners, which is How to Sell Value. And he uses an example of an agency being used to help with the recruitment drive. So there are specific professionals, I think it's to do with optometrists, people who check eye health. And a traditional recruitment company, they worked out the value of the campaign, how much work you would have to do to interview people. This agency or body wanted to employ so many new optometrists. And they worked out how long it would take, how many people we would get. And then they looked at what an agency might do. Not a recruitment agency, but an agency that might advertise the position, that might go through different channels more creatively to reach people. So they would engage people better. They would get maybe less respondents, but they would get better respondents because they would be really engaged by it. Then you would have people turn up who would be more engaged, more ready for work, really positive about it, because the campaign would talk about how much difference you're going to make and how great it's going to be. So therefore, at the other end, you say you actually cost less because you're not doing this massive recruitment drive, and you've actually got better employees who are providing a better service to the end users. So the whole thing's better. So then you put a value on that. That's the gap. So I think that's a good example of every industry is different, every boardroom is different, but it's a way of trying to imagine. Again, it is an imagination gap. Try to imagine what it would be like if you weren't creative. It's really difficult to it's amorphous in itself. And some of the greatest ideas have come from, weird and wonderful places. But it's, putting value on it. I think one thing's interesting. He's much derided in some circles, but Adam Newman, the guy who set up WeWork, WeWork has been it's been a newsworthy story. It's still redefined the marketplace. It's still made lots of money for lots of people. And like a lot of innovators, people benefit in the longer term from someone who maybe crashed and burned. But he grew up on a kibbutz, which inspired the idea for collective working, collective living, sharing. That's a diverse thinking. How do you value that then? See, do you value it in the value of the workplace marketplace now? He may have lost out, or people initially around him may have lost out, but the value of that marketplace is huge. It changed the way we work.
That's incredible. I love that you talked about how there's such a need for people to continue learning things that are their weaknesses and not quite their strengths, and like almost a humility in accepting that, and to see like for those people who maybe aren't as creative and do not have that as like one of their main skill sets, like you said, it can be learned. They can foster that. They can start to learn how to grow their creativity and their imagination and put themselves in situations where they can let their imagination loose. And same for people who may not be accountants and may not know exact numbers, but they can count and they can learn and they can gain that better understanding because, like you said, like I think with diverse thinking, it's having, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like having more of a holistic outlook on creativity and innovation. And it's just important as we like work together and understand where the different positions in a business are coming from, we can really come together and have a powerful, powerful business.
I think you've hit on it there, actually. It's actually that learning thing is if you apply it or treat it as a discipline that's been learned and people have gone through amount of training to get there, that's one way of putting it on a par. I mean, you'll overcome some cynicism. You need to overcome some cynicism, but it is a case of, these people have learned to do this. It's not, they just haven't pitched up with a pencil. So
totally.
But continual learning there's lots of continual professional development that people do, and part of the McKinsey program is that one of their measures is continual, redevelopment, continual reapplication, continual iteration, continually. So it's an inherent thing. I think, most people who say they continually learn, they never stop learning, they never want to stop finding something new. And then the danger in that is people create things that they don't need, people do, just for the sake of it. But continual learning and finding out stuff it drives you to live, really.
Okay, well, we are getting a little short on time here, but I wanted to ask one thing. You said in your bio that you have some experience with AI. I would love to pick your brain on how you think AI is going to affect what we've been talking about today. How will AI affect creativity and learning and numbers? I would love your 2 cents on that before we go.
My 2 cents on that. It's moved so quickly that the changes recently, widened the perception radically and the usage radically. However, very, very quickly becomes one thing from another. From, the Terminator stories initially, or the opposite. It's going to resolve everything. It has now sat into the kind of silo of being a tool. It's not a person. The work I do with imagery is, this is not a sentient person. It's not a robot sat next to you. It's a tool, it's code, it's pure logic. It can do incredible stuff because it can work faster than you can to analyze a lot of data. But it can't, at the moment, it can't have its heart broken. It can't walk in the sand by the sea and feel the waves on its feet. It can't make those kind of imaginative leaps unless there's a precedent for it. It's pure logic. Until it becomes a sentient thing and, talks to each other and excludes us, which is probably unlikely. Arthur C. Clarke may disagree, but it's amazing to harness data. But again, back to Henry Ford, it's what you do with it. It was a really interesting study. It's a naturalist study in the UK to do with measuring, actually was to do with, biodiversity and which birds are actually in decline and what the changing behavior, and also the difference between cities and urban situations and wild situations of forests and things. And someone said, we're actually going to listen. We're going to put sound recorders out. We're going to actually listen to all the sounds. When they sing, how long they sing for, how many can we hear singing. So then AI, the program they had, digested all this within no time, and it made these incredible associations and connections. So they were able to, but then someone had the foresight to say, okay, let's not look, let's listen. And that took imagination. But then AI was the tool that was able to process it and work out some amazing patterns, but then you look at the patterns and extrapolate and do things. So, it's harnessed. There's a danger to be lazy, but again, it's still based on logic. It's based on precedent. It's not imagination.
Like, kind of what I'm getting from what you're saying is like the output you're getting from AI is only going to be as good as your input. And so where you're saying like it had to listen to these noises and these birds, like we had to tell it to do that. And we had to explain from a very humanistic way to AI how to like communicate that and how to do what we want with the information we're giving it. And so with AI, like it can be a really easy scapegoat for laziness, but it also can be an incredible tool to really benefit and elevate our work.
But it's just the same as briefing. I think that was an early learning. If you need to, people don't want to brief properly. And we work whereby people, you're intuitive. They just, you know what I mean. Can you just, this is the kind of stuff we need. And briefing something properly, you have to go and brief this properly. It's called something different now, but it's briefing. So you need to be specific. And if you're not specific and then iterate, you're not going to get what you want. And at the moment, you're not going to necessarily get a finished result in terms of creativity or art or design. But you still, it's hard work. So that in terms of budgets being cut in the current economic climate, the boardroom will say, we don't need to spend this, just get an AI program to do it. And you're thinking, someone has to spend the time to tell him what to do and know what he wants in return, and then be able to actually analyze and say, is that any good? Is that what we need?
Thank you, Mark, for telling me a little bit about AI, and thank you for this amazing discussion on creativity and diverse thinking. It has been such a pleasure to have you on today. Is there any advice you'd like to leave our viewers with?
Be imaginative. Try something different. Learn something new. Give it a go.
I love it. I think that's great advice. That's advice I'm definitely going to take into my day. Maybe I'm going to have to go find a ping pong table to bounce some ideas off of.
Go to a museum and look at a dinosaur. Yeah.
Hey, there we go. I love museums, so maybe I'll have to pop by there after work. But thank you so much for being on Executive Interviews. It was a pleasure, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you. Bye.
I hope today's conversation has given you a fresh perspective on success. Join me next time as we continue to uncover the hidden strategies that drive business innovation. Remember, true success might look different than you think. So keep listening, keep learning, and keep redefining your own path to the top.